seat taken?
Nobody's in the seat, then I ain't taking, son.
So this is, Sabacc?
Sabacc.
Welcome back to Sabacc the Block. This is our official Star Wars show. I'm here with the very, very special guest. I am so excited. From Only Stupid Answers, DJ Wooldridge is in the house. What is up, man?
Hello, that's me. Hi, I'm here.
You're here, man. Here to talk about Star Wars.
I like the title of your show because I'm very much a fan of Attack the Block. I don't think it gets enough love. I think there's talk of a sequel happening.
I heard.
But I appreciate you integrating that into your title.
Very few people know that's what it's referencing, but that's exactly what it's referencing.
Good. It's such a good movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
And obviously, shout out to Sabacc.
No.
We play a couple hands of Sabacc over on First Cut. So
Cool.
that's what we do here. We follow the Sabacc playbook by going through different topics inside of Star Wars. And I want to do all that with DJ. But first things first.
I heard a story about you. I was wondering if it's true.
We always start things off with guests with your own personal Star Wars story. So DJ, what is your Star Wars story?
Well, I think like a lot of people, or at least a lot of people that probably listen to this show, Star Wars had already like the original trilogy.
I heard a story about you. I was wondering
come and
if
gone
it's
in
true.
theaters, and so I probably caught it for the
Everything
first time on like
you've heard about me
the USA
is true.
Network. You know what I mean, with ads and stuff like that. Like I probably caught it on TV, or maybe I don't remember. I do know that for me, like the very first time, like I have vague memories again of seeing it on TV with ads and everything. I think the opening Tatooine bit in Return of the Jedi with the Rancor and the Sarlacc and all that stuff is very much burned into my brain. So that might have been the first one I saw, but it wasn't until I probably saw the remastered ones in theaters when George Lucas went back and tinkered with it. So that might have been my first time seeing it in theaters. And then I definitely remember seeing Phantom Menace in theaters for the first time. Yeah.
That's about where I'm at too. I'm right before the Phantom Menace, so I'm around the time of the re-release for the special editions, which I think is 96, 97. Right around there is when I figured out what Star Wars was.
Well, and it's tough too, because like when you're that age, like you tend to like Mandela effect yourself. Like, because I remember I was showing my wife Muppets Christmas Carol for the first time a couple years ago, and for those that follow that movie, there's a very important song to the movie that was in the VHS release but wasn't in theaters and is now on Disney Plus but was not originally, was cut from the movie. And I have very vivid memories of seeing that song in theaters, but I could not have because it was not. And so it's one of those like, did I see the remastered versions in theaters, or do I just think I did? I don't know. I do, but I do remember seeing Phantom Menace in theaters. I have vivid memories of that.
Yeah, that was another experience for me. I went opening night, midnight for Phantom Menace, and it was amazing. Back when opening night meant midnight too. Back when it was actually like you have to be there at,
when it wasn't like
midnight.
8, maybe 4 p.m. You know, when you get off work, you can come there. And I remember getting the was it Burger King or like Pizza Hut? One of those places had like the fast food. They probably all did. I'm trying to pick one. It was probably all of them. The fast food toys, anything with Darth Maul in it.
Yeah,
Like, that's my guy.
Oh, I fell in love.
Literally
when I was watching the Phantom Menace for the first time when Darth Maul came out, I was like, is this love? Because he was incredible. But yeah, I absolutely love that story. I feel like it fits for a lot of people when they watch Star Wars for the first time. But let's quickly get into the Star Wars news. And for the Star Wars news that we have today, we have Patty Jenkins releasing a statement talking about the kind of craziness happening over at DC, and briefly mentioning her previously planned film, which was Rogue Squadron. And she says in this statement that she always was planning to move ahead with Rogue Squadron, but didn't want it to get in the way of Wonder Woman 3. So she moved on from it, but never planned on actually leaving it. So Lucasfilms wanted her to come back onto Rogue Squadron after Wonder Woman 3. So now that Wonder Woman 3 is officially not happening and not moving forward, she says she's more than happy to come back onto Rogue Squadron if Lucasfilms wants to go through with that project. Yeah. How do you feel, DJ, about Patty Jenkins potentially still doing this movie, and about the movie itself? Do you feel like this is the direction that Lucasfilm should go when it comes to actual films and not just Star Wars streaming shows?
I'd like to see them try movies again. I'd like Patty Jenkins to do more movies. By that, I mean, how much was the gap between Monster and Wonder Woman? I don't want that to happen again, where she just like vanishes for like a decade. Yeah, because I know I did not love Wonder Woman 1984, shocker, but I didn't seem to. I don't disdain it. Like, I don't dislike it as much as other people seem to, for whatever reason. I have my theories, and I mean, what I want is her to do Wonder Woman 3, but. Sure. Yeah, but I mean, sure. Like, yeah, Rogue Squadron. I don't know. Do we know, other than like the name, do we know what like Rogue Squadron's deal would have been?
We do not. What we do know is Rebel pilots. So essentially, it could be anywhere around the time of where Andor is taking place, where it's maybe 5 BBY, to anything after A New Hope, potentially in between Empire Strikes Back, or anything in between Empire or Return of the Jedi. So that's your time period right there.
Yeah, it was. So just today, we'll probably mention it later. I was watching a little bit of Bad Batch, and I was trying to like, wow. I was trying to figure out how old Omega would be around the time of Boba Fett. You know what I mean? Like, well, anyway. So I was, and for somebody, I obviously, it's part of our cultural firmament, but like, I know a lot about Star Wars, but it's not like it was a daunting task. But I'll put it this way: if Tony Gilroy or one of the other writers on Andor writes it, then I 1000% want to see it. That, yes, please, because I feel like if you're not going to do, I feel like Star Wars is at, the way it feels to me is you've got kind of like the more traditional, what I want to say, Star Warsy swashbuckling adventure, Mandalorians, what I assume Ahsoka is going to be. All that stuff, and then you've got your Andors, and I feel like if you're going to do Rogue Squad and kind of Rogue One, kind of bridges the two, but it's obviously a little bit closer to Andor. So I feel like if you're going to do non-Jedi people, then I want it to be closer to Andor, even more so than Rogue One was.
I feel like part of the allure of wanting to do this film, obviously Patty has mentioned a million times how much she loves flying and fighter jets and all that kind of stuff. So she always wanted to do this kind of, I think she said, a tribute to her father, because her father was a pilot, but she said that she would love to do like a X-Wings going crazy and just attacking TIE fighters kind of film, right? Almost like a Top Gun type of movie with Rebel pilots. And there was a video game that came out. I unfortunately did not play it because I suck at those games. And I was like, I'm not even going to try. But there was a video game that had a storyline featuring Rebel pilots, and apparently it was very colorful, very well written. And it was around this time period that she could potentially be diving into. It was also said that the movie wouldn't be an adaptation of the game, but there is potential there to cross over or to pick these characters up. So I feel like there's enough there for this movie. So much of Hollywood is goodwill. And I feel like there's so much goodwill that left Patty Jenkins after 1984. Yeah. That I
weirdly, because it's just like it's one. Yeah, it's one movie. Like, come on, man.
But at the same time, I feel like look at what happened to what's his face for Book of Henry, Colin Trevorrow. As soon as that film came out, they were like, Lucasfilm is never going to see your face again. So I feel like part of me is like 1984 kind of did the same thing that Book of Henry did to Patty Jenkins.
Yeah, and I haven't seen Book of Henry, but I have seen the Jurassic World movies, and I would say I feel like I totally get what you're saying, and I think as part of like the studio system, that might be the conversation that's being had. I think that's unfair to Patty Jenkins because I don't think
it's unfair
Wonder Woman
too.
1984 was that bad.
Yeah,
like it was
I didn't
still,
think
it was not as good as Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
But that's one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. That's a little bit unfair, you know. So it's like me saying that I think the Batman is better than Wonder Woman 1984. But it's like, oh, the Batman. Oh, actually, a better example. People really like to rip on The Dark Knight Rises because it's not as good as The Dark Knight. But it's like, well, calm down. That's not fair. Batman Begins is not as good as The Dark Knight. So I don't know what we're talking. Like, I have my issues with that movie, but I still think it's better than a lot of superhero movies because it's you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Similar to like Wonder Woman 1984, it's like, man, it's better than the Snyder cut in my opinion. Like, I don't know what we're talking about. I don't.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot there, and obviously we're going to get into it more later on in the week. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more information coming about this movie and coming about the potential of Patty Jenkins moving forward with Lucasfilm. But leading into that conversation about films, let's get into the green Psylop.
If you'd only had this little green Psylop.
And the green Psylop is all about movies and the state of Star Wars, because I wanted to get into what I feel is the state of Star Wars after Andor. So obviously, a lot of people tuned into Andor, and I feel like most of them enjoyed what was there. How are you, DJ, feeling about the current place of where Star Wars is at right now?
I'm feeling very hopeful post Andor. Not necessarily in the sense that I would like every Star Wars thing moving forward to be tonally like Andor, because I feel like that's unfair. I would like that a lot, but I feel like that's not really what the franchise is. However, it does give me hope that they will feel more confident to experiment and to try different things. Because for me, as a young person, the appeal of Star Wars has always been the promise of basically we can do anything. And I have never really felt that Star Wars has completely delivered on that promise. And I would like to see stuff, again, not necessarily like I would like to see more stuff like Andor, but more stuff that, like, because I know tonally Andor feels like a departure from what specifically Disney Star Wars has been doing. And I hope it gives them the good word of mouth. I don't know what the viewer numbers look like compared to Mandalorian or whatever, but I hope the goodwill and the word of mouth makes them feel more confident, like, oh, maybe we could do a Disney Plus show that follows that first episode, the Ronin story from Star Wars Visions, or like, because the other one, I love Andor. The other thing I think that's probably my favorite Disney Star Wars things is Visions, because Visions was that, like, it took the iconography and which is so iconic of Star Wars and retooled it to tell all different kinds of stories. And it's like, yeah, and I would say, obviously, I'm not the most versed in Star Wars stuff, but I would say even a lot of those could actually be those one-offs in Visions could still be in continuity. It could be a different time and place, different part of the galaxy. I don't know. But it's like, yeah, do more of this. Let people like Tony Gilroy or other people, you know, obviously there's certain toys they can't break. Like Andor's not going to shoot Vader in the head. Like, that's not going to happen. But let them play with the toys and experiment more. It's tough because I think when you're looking at such a cultural force like Star Wars, I think the only person that didn't feel nervous with it was George Lucas himself. When you look at the prequels, like he just threw stuff out the window, like, this is what we're doing now. And getting back to that, it's kind of a similar thing that I felt with Rings of Power. It's like, cool that you want to do this, but I feel like to bust out of what is kind of more of a fable, more of a mythological, more of a fairy tale type story, you're gonna have to, and make it like a serialized show, you're gonna have to break it a little bit. You're gonna have to like get rid of some of the stuff that makes it that, so that it can function in this serialized form. And Andor, it felt like Andor understood that. It's like, okay, this isn't whiz bang blowing up a Death Star every week. That's not what the show is. It's a spy thriller, but it does what Star Wars like has always done, which is pull from. You've got a little bit of THX in there. You've got a little bit of your old World War II war thrillers that we used to do, which cribbing from other iconic movie language is baked into the Star Wars formula. So more of that, just more playing around, more willingness again to break things. One of the things I really loved about Andor is everything about Star Wars is typically so monolithic: light side, dark side, rebel, empire. What I liked about Andor is like, yes, rebellion, but also there's like 15 different groups in the rebellion, and most of them don't like each other. Like when Luthen's having that conversation with Saw, and he's like, I need you to work with this guy, and Saw's like, he's a separatist. It's like, oh yeah, because it's people, it's not just, that's not the world we live in. The world we live in isn't all like all these groups. And even the Empire, it's like, what is it, the ISB, kind of like their internal police. And then you've got companies that aren't part of the Empire but work with the Empire, and it's like, get into the mud a little bit. And I feel like that I would like when you say something is part of the light side or dark side, what does that mean? There's got to be people that the light side means different things to them. Like dig into it. If we're going to be spending hours and hours and hours of time in this universe, it can't be like the same 5 things every time.
What do you feel about, as far as tone-wise goes, when it comes to future shows, if they should follow the same Andor formula, though? Do you feel like Andor should be the only one to have this super grounded, gritty, complex sci-fi spy thriller, or should it just be Andor and everything else should just be their own thing? Like, could there be another show that's the same tone as Andor, maybe even the same episode length, but a completely different story?
100%. I think like kind of like how Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau kind of have their little like Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, that kind of pocket. I would love to see Tony Gilroy and his team get their own little pocket, like Luthen prequel series. Like, what is Luthen's deal? So interested in that. Where did he come from? Like, what is his? I don't think he's a Jedi or Sith. I want to know where he came from. If I were any of the lead actors in the sequel trilogy, I'd be having my agent call up Tony Gilroy, like, hey, can we get a Poe Dameron show? Can we get like a Finn show? Can we get a Rey? Like, but I think have them have a little pocket, and then you've got like the animated shows, and who knows what the Acolyte's going to be like. If Acolyte kind of has its own vibe, maybe and it's well received, maybe it can get its own little pocket. But just kind of like, and I feel like Marvel comics, all comics kind of do this. There's different editorial pools, and I feel like the Marvel movies and shows either are going that way or will have to go that way, where it's like it can't all filter through, like literally every single thing can't filter through Kevin Feige because he's one guy. And you have different like just kind of like pockets, like, and maybe even it could be because right now we're very much in that kind of like, I guess Andor's between prequel and OG trilogy, and then Mandalorian's everything post original trilogy. It could even be little pockets of time. But yeah, I don't think everything needs to be like Andor, but I do want more of that. And the one thing I do think tonally, even the animated, specifically kind of targeted for a younger audience stuff, could take from Andor is that specificity in saying, because I think Avatar: The Last Airbender did really well with this, where it's like, okay, you've got the 4 bending types, all those are expressed with specific martial arts, all those have specific cultures. It's not that Fire Nation bad, it's that Fire Nation currently bad but not inherently bad, and there's different people that have different feelings about that. And it's like, if we're going to be spending more time in this universe, more of that, please. Like, I would love to have a character, one of my dreams is to have a character maybe from a different part of the galaxy or a different, from a different time period, run into somebody and they're like, oh yeah, light side and dark side. He's like, are you crazy? Where I'm from, it's like 18 different sides. Like, why 2? Who told you it was just 2? Like, mess with it, expand it, dig into it. And I think that applies to any, obviously, because Andor is more of a older demographic, but I think that type of the specificity they bring to it could be older, younger, across the board.
Yeah, and I feel like it's interesting because obviously Andor has created enough buzz, personally for me, I think, when it comes to award attention now that Diego Luna is getting, which is incredible. And I absolutely feel like it's worthy too.
Yes,
I know there might be
1000%.
some people in the back who maybe haven't seen the show and who just see Disney and who just see Star Wars and immediately assume, oh, this is another catering to that kind of audience. But in reality, the show is so separated from the Disney brand that it's almost funny how
it
different
almost
it is.
Feels like, and this is weird to say in the current climate, but it almost feels like an HBO show, like that kind of like House of the Dragon type thing.
It felt like an FX show to me. Like that's what it felt
that's
like.
a great example. Yeah.
So I think it's great. But what we have coming up now in January is the Bad Batch season 2. DJ, are you a Bad Batch fan?
I am actually.
Nice.
I think I just like I heard about it and I like the premise because it's basically like the A-Team in space. I'm like, cool, I'm in. And then I watched the first episode and I really liked where they set it up. It's like, hey, mythology wise, this kind of explains what happened to the Republic and how it becomes how the imagery changes, how like clone troopers become stormtroopers and all that kind of a thing. And these guys trying to exist in that. And so I watched Bad Batch. I just, before the episode, I looked at the embargo. I'm not allowed to review the new season, but I have watched the first 2 episodes of the new season. And I'm liking it so far. That's not a review, it's just me talking. I like the group of characters. And it is weird that like this, because how many seasons are there of Clone Wars? Like 7, 10?
7, yes.
Yeah, it's like, we only got to this idea like near the end. Like this feels like you're dealing with clone troopers. Of course, there's going to be a group that like they dicked around with and made weird. Like I'm into those guys. So, again, it's literally just the band of dudes doing missions in space. I'm like, yep, I'm in. I like it. It's fun.
It's the most Star Wars show to ever Star Wars, in my opinion. That was my review of season 1.
Yeah,
I really do feel like it is the most Star Wars show there is currently, and obviously I'm excited for it and I can't wait to see season 2. But let's get to full sabacc. Our full sabacc for the day is talking all about the films, because I feel like the focus of Lucasfilm right now has been streaming, has been Disney Plus, and it's working out so far. I think based on as far as what they've produced, as far as their numbers go, and as far as interest comes.
And if like you were talking about goodwill, you know what I mean? Like, if you're talking about the conversation around the sequel trilogy and the Disney Plus shows, it's like night and day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I feel personally, and I'm that guy who's like, I still love watching Star Wars movies. There's something about watching a Star Wars movie, and almost no matter any show that's ever come, and this is a personal take, I still prefer the movies. Like there's something about the movies for me that have always been standing out for me. So DJ, my question to you is, where should the movies go? What should we do, or what should they do about their films?
That's funny because I feel like that's a question I would ask you. I'd be interested in your opinion on that. Where should the movies go? I think that's a good question. Because
should they go small or big, or
I think you have to ask yourself. I tell you where they should go. They should go to the Old Republic. I really think there's a lot of value. I really think there's a lot of value in getting the hell away from the Skywalker era. Just get 100 years in the past, 100 years if you just get away from it. Stop especially when you're like dealing with stuff like Obi-Wan, which isn't even a prequel. Like that series is a heartbeat in between stuff in Clone Wars and stuff and Rebels, and like it's just at this point we're such a granular sliver of time. How much in the past is the High Republic stuff, the comic Acolyte and all that
300
stuff?
years.
300 years?
Yeah. Oh no, the Acolyte is 100 years.
Is 100 years. Okay, yeah.
But the book series starts at 300, and 300. The show is going to finish.
Great. Do that. Go back to that time. Go further back. You just get away from. Granted, Andor totally proved me wrong, but other than that, like I think you've told you've told the story. You've told the story of the Empire Invader and the Skywalkers, and there's nothing. There's not a lot left to mine. I don't.
Should they still be like epics though? Should they still be like, if you do Old Republic, it's an epic, right? It's lightsaber on lightsaber battles. It's an incredible epic. Or should they potentially even consider going small, like a tiny story about, I don't know, a family in a different planet going through their own crap?
I think I like it. I like where your head's at.
And you're like, absolutely not.
No, but I don't think for a movie. I think if you've got Disney Plus and you're able to turn out the quality, like, God, so much of the stuff in Andor looks so good.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy to think that they had a less budget or a smaller budget than
which is the only reason why I think my only note in Andor is I would like more goofy aliens. That's one of the things I love in Star Wars. And when they did it, they were great. Like those two guys that help Andor off the planet. Awesome. And the only reason I can think that they didn't do it more was, it's like, hey, you want choices. You want the show to look as good as it does, or you want more aliens? Like, okay, all right, I'll take that sacrifice. I do think epics. I do think epic can mean different things. Here's the trick, I think. How do you do it in a way that fan expectation works in your favor? Because part of me wants to say, let's be generous and say I have mixed feelings on the sequel trilogy. The cast is not one of those things I have mixed feelings about. The cast is fantastic. And I would like to see them do more better things in that universe. But you've mentioned it throughout the episode, goodwill. You know, people, you say we're bringing Rey and Finn and Poe back. People, that's going to immediately mean something to people in their brain, right? Yeah, so I think you say, but I think for Star Wars fans, if you say, and I didn't even get a chance to play that game. I didn't start playing BioWare games till Mass Effect. I just heard the good things about Old Republic. But you say Old Republic, it's tricky because now people are excited, but also you have an expectation. But I think if you get away, whatever you can do to bring in, I'd even be tempted to say, and this is an instinct that they would never do, and they're probably right to. I'd even say, you tell the story. It's the story about this, like going back to the Ronin story from the first episode of Visions. It's this Ronin character, and they're like, where does it happen in timeline? Doesn't matter. Don't worry about that right now. All we're trying to tell you is a good Star Wars story. We'll tell you later. Come back for the sequel. We'll tell you where it happens on the timeline. Just come. It could be same timeline, just across. It's a big galaxy. It could be across the galaxy. Who cares? That doesn't matter. What matters is we're going to tell you a good story. And I guess if the story warrants it, but I do have to like flip it. Like, I mean, you're the guy. This is your jam. Where do you think? Where do you think they should? What should they do with the movies?
It's crazy because I've been thinking about this forever because I really do feel like I already said it, but the films is where it's at, in my opinion. It's so tough. Like it's such a tough decision because no matter what you choose, it's still going to have this level of either question marks or expectations or clarifications. If you go too outside the box, will you need to try and educate an audience on a new Star Wars product or section of the galaxy, whatever that may be? So it's tough. But I mean, if I'm being completely biased with my sequel love, because I love the sequels, I mean, I do feel like there is potential there with maybe not a 100% sequel to the sequels, but maybe a separate part of the galaxy who maybe hasn't heard about the Rey story, and they find out firsthand what happened, and Rey shows up and, you know, talks to them about the Force and the galaxy. Maybe it starts out with like an outsider who's learning about the Force or who's realizing she's Force sensitive, and then hears about the story of Rey and is inspired by that, and then eventually gets to interact with her. I think something like that would be an interesting way to try and build the Jedi Order. Or how does Rey build the Jedi Order? How does that actually happen?
Yeah, and I think that would be cool too. Something like that would be cool too, because I remember reading the Young Jedi Order, I think that was what it was called, books when I was younger. And I thought that stuff was really cool. And so it was a bummer when you got to the sequels and like, yeah, they're all dead. That didn't happen and they're all dead. And it's like, oh, cool. Thanks. And so it'd be cool to be like, and I also feel like you got to do something. Mark Hamill's a treasure. He is still on this planet. You should take advantage of that while it's happening, and you can because of Force Ghosts. You can do that. I would rather Force Ghost old Luke than young CG deepfake Luke. Personally, that's a personal thing for me. You want to do young Luke stories, make it animated, and you're good to go. And I think you could even do that with. I know there was that comic Star Wars Legacy where it was like, again, 100 years in the future, and he was popping up as a Force ghost to one of his ancestors or whatever. It's like, yeah, take advantage of the Mark Hamill being around, because we only really got him for like one movie too, and the sequels. It's like, let's do better. And the beauty of that is it can be just Rey on the other side of the galaxy. I think maybe that's a kind of idea that we're circling as like, start simple. Don't worry so much about like, well, we got to bring, which you can't kind of now, but like for a variety of reasons, but we're not worried about bringing Han, Leia, Chewbacca, C-3PO, R2-D2, all that. You did it.
Yeah.
If it works, great, bring it back, but don't worry about that. Start in this real, I guess, figure out the story you're telling. That's always going to be my instinct. Do you have a story to tell? Does that, like when I'm writing, usually it'll tell me like, oh, this is a feature script, or this is a comic script, or this is a pilot. And then I think you see Disney Plus gives them an opportunity to experiment. Like, okay, we did an Andor, that got this response. We did a Mandalorian, that got this response. We'll do the Acolyte, that got this response. Maybe the Acolyte does well enough, like, okay, movie now the base is acclimated to this kind of thing. Let's see what they respond to. Maybe you do an old Republic show to like test the waters. Like, how are you? Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. My dog's barking in the background.
Oh, I thought it was my dog first.
No. Normally I have her in the studio with me to avoid such things. Use your Disney Plus show, and hell, honestly, what I would kind of do, I think I would be tempted, is to do what they did with Visions, but live action, like have a 6-episode anthology. Cool. I would get weird with it. I'd give it to people like Wes Anderson, Jim Jarmusch, Quentin Tarantino, like, hey, just do whatever and we'll see what happens. But, maybe you want to be a little bit more controlled, have these one-off episodes and see what people respond to. The same thing they did with Visions. Like I keep mentioning that first episode because it has a book, it's getting a comic, like people responded to it. So now they're doing more of the thing. So the Disney Plus, I think I would like to see more movies, but I do think it is trickier because I think now in this landscape, I think it's safe to say Solo would not have been a movie. Solo would be, if they were making it now, Solo would be a Disney Plus show. Rogue One probably would have been a Disney Plus show. Probably would have benefited from being a Disney Plus show because rewatching it's like that movie's doing a lot in its runtime. And the question is, do you do like episode 10 or is it like, that's too much pressure, we're not ready for episode 10 yet, let's do other things? Like, it's tricky. It's
tough. It's got to be one of the toughest things to be in that position. Personally, for me, that's the one where I'm just like, I don't even know. That's why I always say I'd rather work for DC or try to figure something out for them, because at least I can try and pitch some stories that have a lot of basis in the comics.
And I think Filoni has gotten some goodwill for doing this, but I do think they kind of made mistake. I do feel like there might have been merit when they were doing the sequels, when Disney took over, instead of treating Legends like something they just flush down the disposal, treat it like source material the way Marvel does. Like, you don't need to do exactly that, but like people like Thrawn, so let's use them. You know what I mean? Like, let's, people liked Mara Jade, let's include her. Like, maybe she, you know what I mean? That stuff, that material is there. People have an association with it, and again, don't be married to it, but it is material that you can use. And I think that might be a reason why Filoni has a goodwill he does, and that might have benefited them, and it might benefit them in the future. But I also think they benefit from, there's a whole generation of people that do like the prequels. I'm not one of them, but they do like them, which tells me, don't be afraid. Like, you can kind of do whatever the fuck you want, and there will be Star Wars fans no matter what you do, there will be people that hate it, and no matter what you do, there will be people that love it. So like, Disney until recently has come across as very nervous about the Star Wars brand. It's like, kind of don't be, because like you can kind of do whatever and you'll probably be able to get away with it. It'll still make all the money. So like, I just kind of do whatever you think is best and don't worry about recreating whatever happened with the original trilogy, because you just literally can't.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best thing to do, is just focus on the story, trust your audience, I guess, and then see what you can come up with. DJ, let's get to the Force flashback. And I wanted you to choose a moment that kind of resonated with you from any Star Wars movie or media or show that you always appreciated, but you really did feel like wasn't as talked about or appreciated as much as you did. So what's a Star Wars moment for you that really stuck with you?
I don't know. It's tough to think about one that is not as appreciated.
Is there like a line or an acting moment, maybe?
If I can cheat a little bit, sure. I think there's a bit of mythology from Legends that I think people have been reticent to utilize, and I think they totally should. I don't think they should sleep on it. And that idea is the Yuzhan Vong, which were a group of people or a group of aliens that came from outside of the traditional Star Wars galaxy and therefore were not affected by the Force, which sounds silly at first, but then listen, canon, midichlorians, if they came out from outside the galaxy, maybe they don't have midichlorians and therefore the Force doesn't affect them. And I've always thought like, yeah, that's the shit you do. Like that's the, what, like, and I want to say, I was curious one time. I was like, has anything ever happened to those? And I want to say Filoni was going to like introduce them in Clone Wars. And he was like, yeah, but you know, they're inside the galaxy and the Force still affects them. I'm like, then why do those are the two things that make them interesting. Why even bother? Like that's what makes them interesting. And I'm bummed that the sequels, but they could in the future, didn't experiment with something like, because we know what the Force looks like. To have a character you try to use the Force on somebody and it doesn't work, it's like and yeah, that doesn't exist anymore. It's part of Legend. So I don't know if I can think about a specific moment that hit me more than it hit other people, but that piece of mythology has kind of just vanished from the conversation. It's like, no, somebody bring that back, it was a good idea.
I feel like that's very maybe it's just because I'm tuning into Star Trek for the first time this year.
Yeah.
On a real level. I watched Strange New Worlds, and then I watched the other modern shows, and I'm trying to get into the older ones as well. And I feel like that's a very Star Trek thing too.
Yeah. Well, but again, one thing Star Trek, by the nature of its existence, because it was a show, it's more serialized. It wasn't one mythological like almost fable. It was every week they had to come up with a different thing, and they didn't have Star Wars money, so they had to be more focused on characters and the premise, and so. But again, one of the cool things about Star Wars is that from The New Hope, it's all George Lucas's favorite serials, World War II movies, samurai movies. He's pulling from other stuff. So yeah, steal from Star Trek, like do it, like steal from there's a little bit of the Cenobites and the Yuzhan Vong too. Steal that shit. You're Star Wars, do it. Like just take, might as well. Look at what, like when they did the Star Trek reboot, they stole from Star Wars. Fucking who cares? Like they stole from Battlestar Galactica. If it works, take it. That's part of the game. Like make it work into your own thing. Like you couldn't just take the Borg and make them a Star Wars thing now, not just because you don't want it to be obvious, but also tonally it's not the same. But take the time to think about like, what haven't we seen? What would make again, I'm sorry I keep going back to this, but I think it did a good job. That when the first episode of Visions, I was watching, I was like, okay, samurai Star Wars, like, I mean, that's half Star Wars DNA anyway. What are we doing? But the second your protagonist pulls out a red lightsaber, we've all been ingrained what a red lightsaber means. Now we're seeing it in a different context. It makes you go, oh, I'm into it now. Similar with Andor. Stormtroopers, they can't shoot. They're run by a space wizard. The second you recontextualize that with normal people, and it's like, yeah, the Empire cares about Luke. The Empire does not care about Andor, and they are ruining his life anyway. And just out of just sheer, this is what the machine does. Suddenly they're terrifying because it's not, you're not Golden Boy Chosen One. You're just a dude, and it makes it scarier because Obi-Wan's not going to be able to talk in his ear, and he's going to be able to blow up this Star. Andor's got to figure out how he's going to get out.
Yeah.
Recontextualizing stuff, I think, would benefit. And there's so much iconography to work off of to recontextualize that, and it's so culturally saturated that it is as simple as good guy pulls out red lightsaber, and now your audience doesn't know what to expect.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff there, and I mean, obviously, Visions was amazing and beautiful and had so much to offer. DJ, before you take off, I want to play a little game of Squad Up, or Squad Up with Squad Leader Ace, which is me. And I want you to make a squad, and my squad specifically is what I did for this prompt. I said, I want you to create a Jedi Council. So let's pretend this is like the new council. And I wanted to do non-Jedi characters because I feel like that's an easy thing to just kind of fall back on the Jedi wisdom kind of characters. So I want you to pick, who would you select as your 5 council members to kind of bring a new chapter into the galaxy, into the future. And you can pick from any era of the galaxy and just pick 5 non-Jedi members.
5?
Be a part of this council that leads the future of the Star Wars universe, which I'm assuming this is like, no Empire, no whatever. This is like a new chapter. You want to have important leaders. You want to have wise leaders.
Any time period. Any time period. Okay. Off the bat, Luthen from Andor. He's dialed in. He's willing to make the hard choices. But he's not necessarily like amped on doing the hard choices. He just, he gets it. Also, Stellan Skarsgård's fucking good in that show. He's so good. But I think it's important you gotta temper Luthen with somebody a little bit more moral, or somebody that's willing to ask questions, somebody that's not necessarily willing to just go along. And it's also pulling from Andor, Mon Mothma. I thought she was a good, she's a good moral anchor there. Somebody that's not necessarily, somebody who's also willing to make hard choices, but is even less excited about it. Ooh, let's get Boba Fett in there. I feel like there's some. I enjoyed Boba Fett quite a bit. I do think there was some a valid criticism of the fact that technically he's supposed to be a crime lord. He doesn't seem super amped on crime, but I do think he showed good leadership abilities. And shit, where I'm doing things in pairs. Why not? Let's bring Fennec is Ming-Na Wen in that show, right?
Yep.
Bring her in because she was her and Boba Fett worked well together. Again, I like people that are capable, people that are on their stuff. Let's think. I literally just said that I like my aliens. I like my goofy Star Wars aliens. They're a draw for me. So let's get Admiral Akbar in there.
Ooh, good one.
I honestly could not tell you much about him other than it's a trap, but I always got the impression that he was good at his job. That's the impression I got.
Like he's a wise dude.
Yeah, he's a wise dude. People seem to be, because he's the Admiral, right? Doesn't he lead the fleet in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
You gotta know, man, he could show up in Andor. That would be trippy. Could you imagine Admiral Akbar? We would find out so many depressing things about him in Andor.
Yeah, you would.
Absolutely. His family was killed by the Empire. Didn't know that before. All right.
Yeah. His son actually shows up in Rise of Skywalker, Aftab.
There's a have you been on Rise of the Resistance at Disney?
Yeah.
Fantastic, really cool. I don't think he's related at all. He's just another Akbar alien, and it's like, but see, he's iconic. He's iconic.
Yeah, that's a great one. Those are your 5.
Those are my 5. And then if I could hold on, if I could just sneak in a little bit of a 6th one. Wait, I'm blanking. Who was the little dude in Rise of Skywalker?
Babu Frick.
He's not part of the council, but he's like there. You know what I mean? Yeah,
he's like the hype man.
Yeah. He's like hanging out on Luthen's shoulder.
Luthen?
Whatever.
give me your 5 again.
Okay, we got Luthen and Mon Mothma. We got Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. This is a ruthless Jedi Council, and we got Admiral Akbar. Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar doing a lot of heavy lifting, keeping everybody on the straight and narrow.
I feel like okay, so let me try and do this too. Obviously, I wasn't super prepared, but I do feel like there's a couple of Star Wars characters that constantly come up for me that I feel are naturally good, gifted leaders. I'm starting off with my girl, Hera Syndulla. I think she is one of the best Star Wars leaders, one of the best example of a Star Wars leader. She leads that group of rebels. So Hera Syndulla would be one pick for me. I feel like Andor also has like so many characters I could pick. Yeah. But I'm gonna pick one. I'm gonna pick Marva. I would actually pick Marva.
Ooh, Marva's great.
My council as well, especially Marva during the latter stages of her life when she's getting much more energetic and excited.
She's going to do the big speeches on the council that makes everybody cry.
So I feel like she'd be amazing on giving leadership advice or just leading a group of people in general. I'm cheating, but I have to. Not cheating, but it's an obvious one. Padme. I picked Padme. Okay. I feel like she has her feet pretty much planted on the ground. She knows what she's talking about. She's super smart, and she's
also not bad to look at.
There you go. And she cares about people, and I feel like she'd be amazing. So now I have two more, I believe.
Okay.
I have two more. Yeah. I'm gonna pick because you kind of got me with Boba Fett. I'm gonna pick Enfys Nest from Han Solo, the movie Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Yeah.
She's the girl who leads the Cloud Riders, who came up with Han Solo at the end of the movie. She, to me, in just like 15 minutes of screen time, just like screamed out like, this is like a natural ass leader, like someone who's just like, I grew up being a leader, like ever since I was a little girl, and I know how to relate to people. I know how to talk to people, and I know how people feel. Plus I have a Gen Z, I have a younger generation person on my council. Yeah. So I feel like that's a perfect example. And then finally, I feel like I want to go someone who's in the sequels. It's between, I want to go Finn. I feel like Finn, especially.
Wait, hold on. Wait, does Finn count? Is Finn not a Jedi? Is Finn not a Jedi?
I guess he does count. You're right. If I can't pick Finn, I would pick let me pick Finn's friend, Jannah. I'd pick Jannah. Jannah, who also is an ex-stormtrooper. I feel like there's something about ex-stormtrooper that just works out. So I would pick Jannah to be a part of my final member of my council. So I have another younger person on my council as well. So I
think your council, my council aren't quite seeing eye to eye all the time. I feel like
but you never know. I mean, Enfys has she has an edge to her. She could be like Luthen, at times.
You listen, you need the people that are like, hey, let's do the right thing, and you need the people that are like, well, also let's do the thing that's going to get the results we need.
Yeah, absolutely. You need that balance. Both. But DJ, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you talking Star with me. Thank you so much, man. This was a lot of fun. So where can everyone find you, man?
You can find me everywhere that matters, including Hive at DJ Talks Trash. If you want to check out the podcast I do, you can do that over at Only Stupid Answers on Hive and Twitter. You're going to want to yank the vowels out of stupid. I got some stuff coming in 2023, possibly some comic stuff, possibly some other stuff, doing some cooking in the kitchen. So follow me to find out what all that stuff's about.
Awesome. Make sure you guys go ahead and do that and follow DJ. You can follow me at Squad Leader Ace and follow us at First Cut TMO. Make sure you guys leave a comment, like, all that good stuff for Sabacc the Block and for the First Cut crew. Really do appreciate you guys. But either way, for Sabacc the Block, we're going to be peacing out. So peace.